Welcome back to part 2. Ben,
Right.
is there any hope?
Yes. Spoiler.
Short answer. End of today. It's over.
Yeah, you forced me to put in a spoiler there. Yeah, there is hope. There is hope.
Carry on, Ben.
Yeah. Now, the age of the Aquarius is not the only example of the kind of things we're talking about. Yeah. The second coming of Jesus. Now, this is a massive part of the traditions of Judeo-Christianity. That includes the idea of the Jewish Messiah and the return of that Messiah, according to the Christians and Muslims, after he is killed. Now, where's Bill? Is he back yet? Oh, is he? All right. He's going to miss this bit. Now, this is very unusual. There's when it comes to apocalypses and catastrophes and when they happen, very often they're predicted in advance and sometimes very accurately. Like there's a certain date that will come up. In the case of the Millennium Bug, there was actually not only a date but a time to the nearest minute and the nearest second. But in the case of the return of Jesus, there is no date where it's predicted. The idea of Jesus returning is in the Nicene Creed. He shall come again in glory to judge the living and the dead, and his kingdom will have no end. Although when that happens is never revealed. It's I think in the book of Isaiah or the book of Daniel it says that none shall know the date, whether be he the Son or the Holy Spirit. Only the Father alone knows the date when the Son of Man will return. Some people think they know the date in advance, especially within the tradition of evangelical Protestantism in North America. Several people come up with dates, and usually there's a big fuss about it. And
good luck with that.
People gather on hilltops. Yes, nothing ever happens, as Richard said. None of these things ever come true. Now, I must admit, I'm not a Christian. I'm intrigued by this idea, though, and if Jesus did return, I wouldn't be bothered by that. I wouldn't be upset. I would have to apologise, obviously, and say things like, sorry, I didn't go to church every Sunday and all that sort of thing. No excuse. That's all I can say, really. But well, the thing about the second coming of Jesus is it's just another example of what I'm talking about when I talk about this comparative mythology, this archetype of the return to grace. People even describe it as the term return to Eden is something you often hear about. Now, David Icke, I've referred to already, said something very interesting in an interview. It was around in the mid-2000s he started having different ideas, and indeed Bill and I went to see him at a talk he did in 2006. Yet in 2008 he did an interview. Look, this is before 2012, and he said 2012 is not the date when the year when everything would change. He said another year, it would be another year, 2016. It's funny he said that in 2008, and people thought, what's he on about? What's he going on about? But of course in 2012 nothing did happen. But as I said, when the Mayan calendar flipped over, I think forces were released, spiritual forces deep within the etheric body of the earth were set free and changed. It's like it was like when you flick one of the neon lights. When you flick a neon light, it doesn't light up straight away, does it? It takes a couple of seconds. It flickers and it comes on. I think the changing of the Mayan calendar is rather like that. You flick the switch, nothing happens. It just seems like you didn't switch the light on. But then, after a period of time, it all comes to light. And I think that's what happened. The year when the 2012 effect had it reached a level, the energies released, eventually manifested in this world in a form that we recognise was 2016. This year is one of the most remarkable years in human history, because for a 6-month period between June and November of that year, roughly, the Illuminati completely lost control of everything. And the most remarkable things happened. The man on that's Donald Trump on the left, on the right you see Brexit. Now, two of the things that happened in that time period were things that the elite never intended. One was Donald Trump becoming the US president, and the other was Britain voting to leave the European Union. Neither of these things were what the elite wanted, the Illuminati. The Illuminati wanted the exact opposite, yet they happened. Now, I know not everyone agrees. Neil Sanders, who I believe you may be familiar with, he says he's a very good, interesting guy in many ways in terms of his mind control research, but he completely loses the plot over this. He says, no, it's just another part of the elite. It's Cambridge Analytica were behind this and things like this. And there's other people who come to me and they say, Ben, can't you see it? Brexit and Trump was all part of the conspiracy. It was all meant to happen. It was all part of this conspiracy. Why can't you see it? Everyone can see it except me. But no, this was a complete upheaval. This was a major snafu in the works. This was a spanner in the engines big time of the New World Order. Regardless of what you think of these two things, you may be opposed to Donald Trump, you may have voted Remain. Doesn't matter, this was the opposite of what the elite wanted. And what's more, I think that what happened in 2016, what I call the 2016 effect, has never gone away. They tried to claw back the ground they've lost, the Illuminati. They absolutely panicked when this happened. And indeed I'll talk in a little while exactly what they did. However, it's still going on. More and more people have been appearing wearing the letter Q. You see banners saying Q, QAnon, things like that. And again, you may not agree with this. I know Neil Sanders thinks it's all just a bit of fun, just the went that got out of hand. But what if, it doesn't have to be Q or anyone, you don't have to use the word Q for whoever they are. What if there are powerful people in the world today who are not on the side of the Illuminati? People who have access to resources such as military might, armies, navies, air forces, intelligence institutions who are not on the side of the Illuminati and want to put an end to the New World Order. What if that has happened? What if that actually has taken place? Because I think there's a secret war going on behind the scenes right now between good guys and bad guys. Shane Karen can be here today because I had a wonderful discussion with her yesterday about that.
Miles brought this up last week. Just at the last bit of it, his video, and he dropped he just dropped a little bonbon in there.
Yeah, I think it's true. I really think it's true. This could explain why you think the Illuminati would be happy. You'd think that, for example, the pretender Joe Biden and his accomplices, they're not looking very happy right now. They're not looking like people who just won a victory. They're very furtive. They've hardly been seen in public. They keep looking over their shoulder whenever they go out. They have their head bowed. They have frowns on their faces. They look very, very worried. I think they know what's going on behind the scenes. And I think that Q, obviously the plan didn't work. Biden was not meant to be president, but this does not mean it's all over. And what we might see is it could be that there are good people in positions of power now fighting our side. I really do think that's true. That's a very, very good sign. Another reason why I think that's the case is that something incredible happened in December 2017. Something almost unbelievable I never would have imagined happening anytime soon. I thought this was something I thought might happen within the next maybe 20 years' time. It happened in 2017. In December 2017, December the 23rd, I believe. Sorry, December the 19th. It was revealed that some videos appeared, published by the To the Stars Academy, which appeared to show US Navy fighters engaging with extraterrestrial artifacts, UFOs. The term they used was UAP. A lot of people, if you're into UFOs, you will remember where you were on that day. This is where I was. I was doing a program for Miles with Colin Wolford. We were doing a show at the Basis Project, and we were just talking about other things. And then suddenly Miles butts in and he says, "Excuse me, it's just been announced that the US Navy has video and they've just published it of UFOs." I said, "What?" "Yeah, it's true." And you can see this. You can actually see this if you go to Miles' channel. It's on his channel. This interview. And it's quite amazing. That's when I first found out about this. Now I didn't immediately jump out of my seat and go yee, because what happened on its own was not revolutionary, but it was really extraordinarily amazing. Now, see, I did wonder if it might all go away, because the following year nothing happened at all. But then, in May of 2019, the US Department of Defense confirmed the existence of ATIP. That's the Advanced Aerial Threat Identification Program, which ran from 2007 to 2012. It actually carried on after that, which that comes later. But many people thought this might be something made up by TTSA, and it wasn't real, and this was just fake videos. But no, they admitted there was an ATIP. Lou Elizondo, the former head or official in ATIP, he came out and started speaking in the media about his involvement with that organisation. Then in September of 2019, this footage was confirmed as US Navy footage. It wasn't fake. It wasn't made up by some kid that Tom DeLonge employed to do CGI. It was real. This vindicated people like David Fravor, the pilot, who spoke about this from December 2017 onwards, that it was real. Then in January 2020, the US Navy admitted more evidence exists. Now, that's the USS Nimitz, the aircraft carrier. It's surrounded by other ships, submarines, aircraft, things like that, as part of the fleet. And the evidence that exists is not just, not just more video footage, there's telemetry. There is radar logs, there's electronic support measures, there's firing solutions, things like that. Lots of data indicating that the ships of this fleet detected these objects. And the reason they're holding them back actually has nothing to do with the UAPs themselves. It's just releasing this information now, there's so much of it, it would actually give away secrets about the capabilities of these ships, which is closely guarded, confidential information. Then in April 2020, the videos we're referring to here were declassified, which sounds a little bit like shutting the stable door after the horse has bolted. However, I think it's a very important moment when this happened, April 2020, because that guy, David Fravor, one of the pilots, when he spoke out, there was always the off chance that he might face some kind of criminal prosecution for revealing classified information. This declassification essentially was a nudge in the ribs saying, we're not going to pursue this matter any further, there'll be no further action taken against you. And this then encouraged others to come out. There's people like Sean Cahill, who was on the USS Princeton, which is a part of the Nimitz fleet, and Alex Dietrich, another pilot. And several other people have spoken out. Chad Underwood's another pilot. There's many, many others. And indeed, this is a momentum that is gathering around the world in all kinds of UFO situations. For example, Mr. Greenwood has come forward. Mr. Greenwood was one of the witnesses. He was a teacher at a school, the Westall School in 1966 in Australia, who saw a flying saucer along with all his pupils. He stayed quiet for 55 years. Now he's speaking out. He's been interviewed on the news. Why? Because of this. The climate has changed, ladies and gentlemen. The whole way UFOs is being portrayed in the media has transformed in ways that nobody predicted. And in July 2020, ATIP, it was announced that ATIP actually did not close in 2012. Well, it did officially, but all that happened was it actually moved, it simply moved offices. It was moved from the Defense Intelligence Agency to the Pentagon, and it changed its name. It changed its name to the Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force, which still operates today. A lot of the same personnel were in it. It's just basically a rebranding, or if you could describe a secret organisation as being rebranded.
Would it be great if Nick Pope was answering the phone for them?
Hello, hello. Is that the UAPTF? I can neither confirm nor deny that. Now, the most interesting bit, I think, of this whole thing is physical evidence. You know, as we know, when it came out, all the information about ATIP came out, it was revealed that Bob Bigelow was involved in it as well. He was recruited to analyse physical debris, which came from somewhere. It's really weird how much subtext there is in this. We were just reading between the lines how much you can find just from that. Anthony Bragalia actually wrote under the Freedom of Information Act request to the DIA, saying, what can you tell me about Bigelow's project? And they wrote back saying, we have 154 pages of documents, only 11 are available for release under the Freedom of Information Act, and here they are. But I'll tell you what, I know I'd love to see them all. I'd love to see all the ones that are too hot for FOIA, but to be honest, the 11 that were published are interesting enough. They refer to something called nitinol. It's a remarkable substance. In fact, Dr. Irena Scott refers to it independently in her own book, Sacred Corridors, where she describes her work at the Batal Memorial Institute, analysing exactly the same thing we're seeing here, from a different source. This is metallic. It contains things such as copper, iron, these various elements you see all over the universe. They've been detected in distant galaxies. Yet they are of a proportion and of an alloy that you never see manufactured anywhere on Earth. So you don't find things such as brass or bronze. You never find these known alloys, the things which we find in industry. There's no steel, there's nothing like that. They're all in really weird combinations and mixtures. They also have remarkable properties in terms of electrical conductivity and indeed flexibility. Now, one of the properties of nitinol is very interesting. Even though it's a metallic substance, it appears to have certain properties that are unique among metals. The only other substance you find them in is things like rubber. That is, they have the ability to turn you can warp them into different shapes, and they have their ability, in other words, they obey Hooke's law, it's called, they return to their original shape. You can fold them and fold them again and fold them again. You open them up, and then you just the moment you release the pressure, it just returns to its original shape. Like a piece of foil. It's described as being like a piece of foil that does that. Does that sound familiar to any of you?
Yeah.
Roswell.
Yeah. This is exactly what Jesse Marcel Jr., a medical doctor, highly qualified, this is exactly what he described, was shown to him in July of 1947 by his father following the Roswell incident. Could nitinol be the long sought after Roswell substance? We don't know. The 11 pages say nothing. But it's possible the other 143 do. I'd love to see the ones that are too hot for fire. I really would, because
even that's an interesting graph there. The one on the left, it's pretty much telling you how it absorbs the energy, then converts the energy into like a perpendicular effect.
Yes, that's
straighten the thing out.
That's K's Kelvin, I believe, and that's centimetres. Yeah, it's very interesting. These graphs, these don't match any things. Also, Dr. Scott told me that when she was handed this, she had to melt it. One of the assignments were for her to melt it, so she took it to a forge. It couldn't melt it. It couldn't go hot enough. She eventually found one in New Mexico, ironically enough, that was really, really hot. It was the hottest one in the United States. It could go up to 2,500 degrees. And finally, they managed to melt this metal. Now, one thing these 11 pages don't tell you is where this comes from. They tell you it's like nothing we've seen before. It's not, Dr. Scott says it's not manufactured anywhere. It has isotopic ratio that indicates the materials did not originate on the Earth. The phrase they use is meteorite, but of course it doesn't mean it just fell from the sky as a natural object. But yeah, it's almost like there's a subtext. It's rather like that little meme you've seen of Georgios Tsoukalos of Ancient Aliens, where he says, "I'm not saying it was aliens, but it is aliens." It's like it's kind of like it's like, well, where do these things? Where's this? It's like they said this stuff. It's like the UAPTF report. Where do these things come from then? Are they US secret technology? No. Did China make them? No. Did Russia make them? No. Are they seagulls or paper bags blowing in the breeze? No. Are they aliens? And they sort of do this. They kind of They kind of go. They sort of give you they don't say it, but you can see it. Reading between the lines, you can see it's there. Now this is the Omaha incident, April 2021. This actually, to begin with, it didn't look very exciting because it looked like this was a mistake, and they actually had filmed aircraft. These objects do appear to have navigation beacons. Yet, what happened was that later another video came out, released by Jeremy Corbell, from contacts he has on the inside. These are sailors on board this ship. So it's a coastal patrol vessel off the coast of Florida that detected these things on radar. Now, the second video had a picture taken of a radar display, and you can actually hear the sailors talking about, oh, this object appears here, and they give the bearing, they give the speed, they give the course, and they say, and they keep listing these various contacts on the radar, and you can see them appearing on the display. Now, this is pure conjecture on my part, but each of these red arrows indicates one of these milestones in ufological revelations. For example, starting here on December the 19th to 2017, that was the initial bombshell of ATIP. Then nothing happens in 2019, we get here, here, here. You can see there's no actual evenly spaced revelationary pattern here, but it still looks to me a little bit like a schedule. I can't prove it. But it looks like there's some kind of schedule going on, in which case we should expect something else roughly around our autumn time this year. We won't know for certain. It's not. We don't know for certain. Right, Oumuamua. Who's heard of Oumuamua? I think it's really... Oumuamua, great. For those of you who haven't, it's an object that flew through the solar system from outside it. It passed by the Earth and then headed back out into space. It was detected by the Pan-STARRS Observatory on Hawaii, and the chief astronomer, Professor Avi Loeb, wrote a book about it called Extraterrestrial, because he believes this was an artificial object. Aliens, in other words. This here picture of Oumuamua, it's rudely christened the turd picture. It's actually not a photograph. There's no photograph this close of a Muamua. The best photograph we have of a Muamua is simply a pink dot in the sky. It was taken from a telescope. This is just an artist's impression of what it would look like if it was close by. If, as you can see, it's craggy, it's rough, it's like one of these asteroids. It's long and thin, because it's a remarkably long, thin object. Most asteroids are circular or oval shaped or irregular. But they've obviously made it look like a natural object, which it may well not look like this at all. Now, we were talking about Paris, Richard was talking about Paris, about the sedimentary rock that was detected near Paris. There's actually some photograph of that sedimentary rock with its various layers. Originally Paris was beneath the sea, and different layers formed as the dust and the dirt settled and eventually became buried and eventually became hard as rock. And you can see these sedimentary layers here just outside Paris in this cliff face. And you can see a creature walking up the wall there, can't you? You can see that creature climbing up there. It looks like a spider or a crab or something, crawling up, which you'd expect if it's near the seaside. You know, these things do exist. However, I have to tell you now, this is actually not Paris. This photograph was taken on Mars. It was taken by one of the probes on Mars. What the hell is that? It's a creature, it looks like there's a shell. There's some legs or protruding. It's definitely not a part of the rock. It's on top of the rock.
Yeah, there's no pareidolia to be had in the rock there or anything. That's pretty much
there.
Then.
But you see here that obviously Mars did have oceans and rivers and lakes. It must have been much warmer there once and had a much denser atmosphere. It's always thought, well, maybe life did evolve there, but no, nothing's happened. But look, we see here what looks like some kind of animal. That's what it looks like to me. I mean, strange AF. I mean, what I'm wondering is, is this bit happening deliberately? Are we being given these revelations on purpose? The schedule I just talked about, the various things to do with UFOs. Are we essentially being softened up or prepared? Not softened up, maybe toughened up is a better word, for some major revelation about the universe we live in, which is there is a non-human intelligence out there which is interacting with us, which already exists on planet Earth. We don't have to go searching the skies with telescopes, like I said in my SETI talk. It's already here. In which case, because there's some probes on Mars now, which are much more sophisticated than ones we've seen before. There's the Zhang probe from China and the Perseverance probe from the US, which have created many firsts, such as the first sound recorded on Mars, the first motion pictures from another planet. It's the first helicopter, the little Ingenuity helicopter flying above Mars right now. So I wonder if are they going to at some point very soon discover life on Mars? They already know life exists, but are they going to tell us? Are they going to reveal it to us? Not because if life's on Mars, that doesn't mean there are grey aliens, but if they tell us life is on Mars, and especially if it can be proved to have evolved independently from Earth, and then they say there are grey aliens, it will be less of a shock. We'll kind of be prepared for it. Because they know their mind controllers work so well that most people are actually very blinkered, they have short memories, they're frightened very easily, and so if there are good guys in control of this world, they are essentially aware of the fragility of humanity as based on the mind control of the bad guys, and they're trying to work within that to bring us out of it. But they have to do it slowly and carefully. We have to be decompressed like a diver that comes up from a deep dive. If divers, when they come up from deep dives, have to go into a decompression chamber where the pressure is very slowly released over a couple of days. If you bring the diver straight up, it'll explode because the internal pressure is so much higher. And that's what they're concerned that will happen to us. Now, do you recognise this lady? Helen Sharman. She is not only a very highly qualified chemist, she's a very important person historically because she's the first British person in space. She believes in aliens. She said aliens may exist. It's possible they are here right now and we simply can't see them. Now, when it comes to TV, there are bad programmes and there are really bad programmes. Which is the worst, do you think? Sorry?
Loose women.
Oh, yeah. We may have different opinions on which is the absolute pit. It's hard to pick one actually. One of the worst I think is Loose Women. It's a combination of very shallow drivel to do with tabloid celebrity gossip and very toxic feminist propaganda. But even the filthiest dung heap sometimes contains a jewel. And I think Kim Wilde is quite a jewel. I think you'll agree, guys. Yet I admire her now even more than I used to, because she went onto this trash heap of a programme and she started talking about her UFO experiences. And the other hostesses were like, you know, looking really awkward like this. But she said she was in her own home. It was in her back garden. And her husband saw it too. He went in to get a camera to photograph it. By the time he came out, it was gone. But she was in the local papers and everything like this. Yeah, I mean, it's risking her reputation quite in an extraordinary way to say things like this. Because, well, in the past it would have, I should add. I should correct myself there. Because I think that times have changed and people can actually speak more openly about these sorts of things than they used to. There was Storm Area 51. Now this was unbelievable. This is very funny. It was treated as a joke, but what happened was a young lad, who's kind of a stereotype of all of us. You know, long hair, he talks rather stupidly, lives in his mother's basement. He created a meme on Facebook. Storm Area 51, they can't stop all of us. Let's go in there and see them aliens. And he basically said, if you want to come with me, let's meet outside the gates of Area 51 and let's charge the place. Let's run there with our arms behind our backs. It's called Naruto running. I'd never heard of this because I'm not less than 15 years old. But you actually run towards something with your arms behind your back like that.
You're easier to be shot when your arms are behind you.
Well, yeah, this is the problem, you see. By the time, within a couple of days, it's had 2 million members. And the authorities, the police actually called a state of emergency in Nevada because they were concerned that the 2 million people were going to turn up and storm the base. If that happened, it would cease to be a joke, because the camo dudes, those security guards, they would open fire.
Wagon Hood security.
Yeah, they would open fire. They would kill people. People would get killed. Probably more people would get killed just running across the desert and getting too hot and dehydrated or tired. As it happened, the people did arrive, but they had like a festival called Alien Stock, where people played music and there was some discussions like ours and things like that. Hopefully it will happen again this year, but I'm glad to say no one was stupid enough to try and break through into Area 51. I don't think it's actually, the idea of invading Area 51 I think is perfectly justified, considering the state of affairs. But if someone's going to do it, they have to do it. You have to get some people who are armed and know what they're doing. In fact, if you read my books, these fictional books, that actually happens in these books.
I get the impression that if it had have happened and thousands of people turned up, they'd have just had an Area 51 open day, hit all the good stuff and put all the Cold War stuff out on display.
You could have dealt with it that way. Yeah, and of course they're now, funny enough, the US then now chooses this time to create the Space Force, the 6th uniform branch of the armed forces of the US. Its charter is to provide freedom of operation for the US in, from and to space, provide prompt and sustained space operations, protect the interests of the US in space, deter aggression in, from and to space, and conduct space operations. It's the penultimate sentence is the most interesting. Deter aggression in, from and to space. From space. Deter aggression from space. What aggression is coming from space? Yeah. Is there a reason why the Space Force has been established right now? Is it because of aliens, or possibly the threat of aliens, which may or may not be real, as I'll explain in a minute. But anyway, would you like to know more? There is a .mil website for this. They are recruiting if you're job hunting. Let's know what you find out if you go in there, if you join up. Now this is weird. In 2015, UNICEF, the United Nations Children's Fund, produced a little video. It's just over a minute long, and it tells the moving tale of a young boy. It's called Marciano, an Unexpected Friend. It was made in Chile by UNICEF. It tells the story of a young boy who's clearly an alien, or a human-alien hybrid, enrolling at a school among completely normal human children. And they look at him like he's weird, because of course he is. And they bully him and they play pranks on him and things like that. And he's very lonely. He's obviously from an extraterrestrial background because he draws pictures of flying saucers and he has pictures of them on his bedroom wall. But eventually he uses his telekinetic powers one day during a school play, and they learn to accept him. And the tagline is, never miss the chance to meet someone new and have a new experience. And I mean, this can be interpreted in many different ways. Yeah. Michael Salah. See, you could say that perhaps the little boy is symbolic of a boy from another country. He maybe speaks a different language and looks different and things like that, and that it's about accepting people who are a bit different. You know, this happened when I was a little kid at school. I was actually UNICEF actually resettled a family who'd fled from Uganda, the Idi Amin regime, and the little boy came to sit in our class during our first school. But however, Dr. Michael Salla thinks we should interpret the extraterrestrial nature of this boy more literally. And indeed, this is not the only example. Funny enough, I looked at UNICEF's website and tried to find out any details about the backgrounds of that film. It's mentioned very briefly in their 2015 prospectus and their report, but there's no real background to it about where it comes from. Same with this. A number of children in York turned up one day at school to find there was a flying saucer crashed in their playground. It was surrounded by warning tape, and there were people with hazmat suits, and NASA were there, and the police were there, and things like that. And they, what happened was they ended up doing a role-playing game where a flying saucer did crash, a UFO, and aliens were seen, and things like that. And the children were told to write stories about it, and things like this. Turns out this wasn't the only example. This happened across the country in many different schools.
Yeah, it was on the local news. Yeah. I remembered when you spoke about
this. This is obviously part of the national curriculum. Kathy Morgan, who you may be familiar with from the BASIS project, her grandson was involved in this. So why are they teaching little kids about aliens all of a sudden? Are they conditioning the youngest members of our society for some new piece of news? Now this says right now you are being prepared for official disclosure. I'd reword it. Are you being prepared for official disclosure? Because I'm not sure. There is a possibility. If the good guys I talked about earlier are actually on the inside right now with military backing, and they're trying to fight, take back our world from the evil Illuminati, maybe they are. This is one of the things they're going to do. They're going to tell us the truth about aliens. We're going to have disclosure with a capital D. And that everything we've seen, everything I've talked about in this section of the speech, is connected to that. To condition us, to prepare us, to just get us ready, to get us in the right frame of mind, so that when they drop the bombshell about the aliens, we won't freak out. As David Bowie said, there's a starman waiting in the sky. He'd like to come and see us, but he thinks he'd blow our minds. Or is something else going on? To be fair to Dr. Stephen Greer, he may have a point. Greer believes that everything in what you might call new ufology, that's everything I've talked about since 2017, all of that is a hoax. It's all intended to pave the way for what his witness, Carol Rosin, called the last card. That is, in other words, they create a fake alien threat to justify a dictatorial world government. And everything we've seen, everything that Lou Elizondo and everyone has said, and Leslie Kane and all the others, is a part of that. That's something we have to bear in mind as a possibility. This here is it's called the Zeppelin UFO. It was actually seen in 1967 in Wickham, Pennsylvania, USA. And it's a white cylinder with little appendages sticking out of it. And several people have noticed how similar this looks to the descriptions of the Tic Tac UFO seen by David Fravor in 2004. What they're saying basically is that it's possible that the Tic Tac and these other objects are, in fact, aircraft made by Lockheed Martin and other defence contractors using anti-gravity propulsion and free energy, which can match the capabilities of extraterrestrial spacecraft, possibly back engineered from extraterrestrial spacecraft, as Mark McCandlish said before he supposedly shot himself. Now this is where it's a bit tricky here, because we have to, I think, accept that we don't actually know the answer yet, but we shouldn't assume anything, because Dr. Greer takes the line, he's absolutely certain he knows what's going on here. He's 100% certain, and we should just follow what he says completely. Other people like Stephen Bassett say the opposite. They say, no, this is a step to genuine disclosure. Obviously, I hope Bassett is right and Greer is wrong. But I think we should, until we know more, try to plot a course between the two extremes of naivety and cynicism. Because you see, if Greer is wrong, and this is the good guys on the inside doing real disclosure, then that's an opportunity we can't afford to miss. And if we act like Stephen Greer and all his cronies, we are going to miss it. But it's not just aliens we've got to worry about. I mean, the world government appears to have come up with an idea which is far less dramatic and obtrusive than Little Green Men. Boromir, once again, great guy, one of us, he's the conspiracy theorist of Lord of the Rings. But he says here, it's a strange fate that we should suffer so much fear and doubt over so small a thing. Little virus here. How much fear and doubt have we suffered as a result of this? What is the coronavirus? What is the pandemic? What is everything that's happened in the world as a result of this disease? It is the Illuminati. It is their 2016. It is their retaliatory strike to what we did in 2016. When they lost control in 2016, they panicked. They absolutely messed their pants with fear. And they thought, oh my God, what are we going to do? And so they struck back, I think, in an act of desperation, which is so transparent that it appears to have, I think it's backfired on them. Because so many people can see through this. The coronavirus is simply an excuse to bring in a state of emergency, which means they can control our lives even more. They can bring in authoritarian rules, they can hyper-regulate the economy, they can control people's movements, they can even forcibly medicate us on the pretext that it protects us from this danger.
With a 98%
Protecting people.
recovery rate.
Yeah, sorry?
With a 98% recovery rate.
Yeah, it's exactly. This is The Power of Nightmares, which is The Rise of the Politics of Fear by Adam Curtis. And it was made long before this coronavirus came about. But it said something very interesting. The opening line of this documentary goes thus. In the past, politicians promised to create a better world. They had different ways of achieving this, but their power and authority came from the optimistic visions they offered to the people. Those dreams failed, and today people have lost faith in ideologies. Increasingly, politicians are seen simply as mere managers of public life. But now they have discovered a new role that restores their power and authority. Instead of delivering dreams, politicians now promise to protect us from nightmares. They say they will rescue us from dreadful dangers that we cannot see and do not understand. In other words, the crisis we see with the coronavirus is something that they couldn't live without. They couldn't exist without it. They now are in a position where, unless there's some kind of crisis going on, they can't rule. They lose all their power. They lose their legitimacy to govern. Which means we seem to lurch from one crisis to another to another. Have you noticed that? And if no real crisis emerges, they'll make one up. What's coming next? Because, you know, I think, personally, that the coronavirus threat is starting to jump the shark. People just really, if you see the videos about it from the government, they're almost all thumbs down on YouTube. The comments underneath newspaper articles indicate, the opinion polls show that people just are not falling for this anymore. So I think there's going to have to be a new threat. It could be it may not be the aliens, it may not be something as extreme as the aliens that I've just talked about. But food shortages. Have you noticed that there's been news stories warning of food shortages? It could be as bad as the pandemic, when everyone was fighting over toilet paper. Do you remember that? Apparently there's not enough lorry drivers. They haven't got enough lorry drivers. They haven't got enough farm hands. There's all, what are we going to do? Well, you know, if I was sensible, I would say, well, recruit some. Give them jobs. Take one of these people on furloughs. Some of them are qualified to drive lorries. Get them driving these lorries. But no, we can't do that. We need another lockdown. We could be looking at food shortages. And what's more, the government appears to be very keen on buying up farmland right now in all countries. In South Africa, they've already quite advanced with this. Now, whenever that happens, you get trouble, because governments generally only try to control food when they really, really want to get their claws in. They really do. This has happened before. In the 1930s in Ukraine, under the Stalin regime, the farms in that country were collectivized and basically controlled by the government, and 8 million people died of starvation. Are they going to try and pull something like that now? We're going to run out of food, we're going to have rationing, everyone's going to go, oh my God, what are we going to do? The government says, it's a crisis, but we will save you from it. We will protect you from this danger. Power and authority restored. Or, no, Richard mentioned the problems with electricity supply as a result of natural disasters. But there's other things that can destroy our electricity supply, such as cyber terrorism. There's been articles in the papers about the threat of people hacking power stations and shutting them down. Hacking the computers and just closing them down, resulting in a blackout. In which case, again, oh my God, we've got no electricity, what are we going to do? I bet this happens in winter. If this happens, it's going to happen in winter, and people have to worry about keeping warm. It could happen this winter coming. What are we going to do? Oh my God, government says it's a crisis, we'll deal with it. I bet it's those pesky Russians, which then gives an excuse for more hostility between the moment the West is desperate to quell Russia at the moment, because Russia's not doing what it's told. But you may be thinking, oh my God, what can we do when this happens? What chance do we have against a conspiracy with trillions of dollars at its disposal, an almost infinite ability to control minds through the media, and all these other resources of force? Well, there's an awful lot we can do about it. As the Boudica rebellion showed, this is not all powerful. It always makes itself look like it's all powerful, but it's not. And what's more, you may be frustrated thinking, well, other people aren't waking up quickly enough. We're just a handful of people sitting in a house here in Newcastle. Whereas what's the rest of the northeast doing? Well, not we're in the Newcastle area, in Tyneside. What's the rest of Tyneside doing right now? They're sitting at home vegetating in front of EastEnders and the sport and things like that. You know, what chance do we have when it's only just a few of us? Well, a few of us may be all that's necessary. Because of the work of this guy, he discovered something very interesting. This is Lyle Watson. He was a South African scientist, and he did an experiment a long time ago, actually in the 1950s, on these. Aren't they cute? They're cute little things, aren't they? These are snow macaques. They live on Kashima, an island off the coast of Japan. They're sweet little things. These little monkeys were very, very interesting. Lyle Watson found them very interesting because he worked out something about them. They used to eat potatoes, and they used to dig these potatoes up from the ground and eat them. But one of the monkeys one day discovered that if you wash a potato in the sea, it tastes better because the soil is washed off it. It also gets a bit of salt inside it, which improves the flavour. Now, when one monkey started doing this, the other monkeys watched and decided they would try it. And as a result, the idea spread among the whole community of monkeys. And Watson was very, very interested because he thought, he was studying the way the monkeys learned things. He's judging their intelligence and things like that. He predicted within a couple of years probably all the monkeys on that island, the Kashima, would know how to do this sort of thing. And he drew a chart which ran something like that. And when it reached the top, that's when all the monkeys know how to do this. But the chart actually, based on his studies, didn't do that. It went like that. And then at a certain point it suddenly went like that. In other words, when a certain number of these monkeys learned how to do something, suddenly all the monkeys on the island knew how to do it. Not only that, snow macaques that lived on other islands also suddenly worked out how to do this thing with the potatoes. How is that possible?
I don't know, but it worked with masks very well, didn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, I know. Well, that's slightly different, but this chap knows. This is very interesting because this is Carl Gustav Jung, who was a colleague of Sigmund Freud, but was head and shoulders over him, I think, in both moral and in scientific terms. He said there was a collective unconscious, and all we all have, including monkeys and species like it, that certain ideas get put into this, archetypes get put into this, and once the idea is shared by enough of the people, it can actually reach a critical mass where it is transferred instantly into the entire population. And Watson estimated that this particular trigger point, this critical mass, was about 1%. Have you ever heard the phrase the 100th monkey effect? Yeah. That's where this comes from. Now, let's just look at how close we might be to that 100th monkey point. Because remember, humans are closely related to the apes. We're part of the primates. The Academy of Conspiracy Theorists. This is how they used to laugh at us, didn't they? They're not laughing now. This is one of the last photos ever taken of President Kennedy before he was shot. 51% of Americans currently accept the truth that Oswald did not act alone in this assassination. That's just the start of it. 11% question 9/11. 40% believe in UFOs. I think about 25% believe that the government's lying about UFOs. The list goes on. When it comes to the coronavirus, I mean, just look. You could just see the thumbs down on the videos, like I've said. Just look at the comments under the newspaper articles. The mainstream media might be telling us one thing, but we people are thinking another. It appears that people like us are actually a very small vocal tip of a huge silent iceberg. This means that we are either very close or already past that 100th monkey point, which means it is literally inevitable that our ideas are going to transfer to the entire population of the world. And when that happens, particularly as you see with the 2016 effect, this New World Order is finished. I think the UFO disclosure in particular, I think that is actually a red line. Once you have UFO disclosure, you no longer have a New World Order. It's not possible in the post-disclosure world, because psychologically they need us to believe we're this little pale blue dot, as Carl Sagan said, this tiny little oasis of life in an infinite cosmic desert. And also, that also relates to things such as the free energy as well, which again is something that could not exist in the New World Order. So when that happens, I think that's it. We can sit back and relax, quite honestly. Obviously, the natural disasters of the type Richard talks about could happen any time. But in a post-Illuminati world, the results of that particular disaster will be very different to one happening in an Illuminati-occupied world. And for example, micronovas, the solar flares and things like that. Now, at the moment, if one of those happened, probably we would just panic, because firstly, we wouldn't, because there are things you can do to stop those. You can actually build hardened electronics and electrical circuits that can actually deal with things like the surge of power that one of these would happen. But there's even things like just simply reducing power on the grid and things like that is very protective. Switching things off in your home, things like that will protect you. The problem is these solar flares travel very quick. They're very, very fast. When they erupt from the sun, we could have as little as less than 24 hours notice before they hit the Earth.
Could be 8 hours.
8 hours even, yeah, even less. This means we would have to coordinate our efforts over an entire civilization to do this. So all the power grid is reduced, things like that. And so, but in a post-Illuminati world, that will be a lot easier, and we'd have a better chance of survival. That's just one example. Now, I've got time to tell this story, Maureen?
Oh, yes, we can.
Yeah. I want to tell you this story because it's just very heartwarming. It's a conspiracy theory that's different from the others. Most of them are quite grim and upsetting and worrying. This is a very heartwarming one. Now, who climbed this Mount Everest, the tallest mountain in the world? Who climbed that mountain first?
Hillary.
Who else?
Sherpa Tenzing.
Yes. 2 names are on the Hall of Fame for climbing this mountain first. Tenzing Norgay, known as Sherpa Tenzing, and Edmund Hillary, a New Zealander. Now, when this happened, the two guys climbed the mountain together. They were very close friends, and they report that they held each other's hands and walked onto the summit of the mountain together. So both of them were the first men to climb Mount Everest.
The first gay men to climb Mount Everest.
I think they were just good mates, you know. But when they got back to camp, Tenzing was given some. They got back to the bad choice of words. When they got back to the base camp, Tenzing was given some documents to sign, which he just was said administrative details. Now, Tenzing could speak English, but he couldn't read it. Couldn't read English. And what that document he was told to sign actually said was that I, Tenzing Norgay, saw Sir Edmund Hillary, climb onto the summit of Mount Everest ahead of me. So Hillary, and Hillary alone, is the first man to climb Mount Everest first. I was second. Well, he was horrified when he realised what had been done. They tricked him. They tricked him into doing this. And the thing about it is, in order to go through their plan, they needed Hillary's cooperation. So they went up to Edmund Hillary and they said, "Look, it's all sorted. You're going to be the only one. You alone will have the honour. You will not have to share with anyone. We tricked Tenzing into saying he went first. We got the document here to prove it. We just need you to sign it as well, just to say that it's true." Now, what would most people do in that situation?
Tell them to go off.
Yeah.
Well, I hope so, because that's exactly what Hillary did. He said he refused to betray his friend.
Good.
He said, "This is a lie." Tenzing came to him and said, "They tricked me." He says, "Don't worry, I'll sort it out." And they ripped up the document in their face.
Good.
As a result, yeah, good for him. What I'm saying is that, you know, we hear a lot of, we talk about sheep, we talk about how awful people are. Was it that slide said people, they're bastards, was it, Richard?
People,
And indeed they can be.
bastards.
Yes. They can be, but we can also be very great. We can be loyal, we can be loving, we can carry out acts of enormous moral courage, we can do good things. And what the story of Mount Everest is a conspiracy theory, which I hope is true because it is very heartwarming, because it shows the magnificence of the human spirit, when all we hear at the moment is its degeneracy. We can return to grace, we can take our place as citizens of a universe, people on our planet, free, independent among ourselves, but also we can participate in the inheritance that's been denied to us, that is contact with other civilizations, the truth that we live in a living universe, we're not just a pale blue dot sitting alone in nothingness. Is the glass half full or half empty? Are you an optimist or a pessimist? Now, a lot of people are pessimists because they're afraid of being optimists, because they fear disappointment. And it's true, if you are an optimist and you're proved wrong, you will feel disappointed. But look at the other side of the card. What if you're a pessimist and you're proved wrong? You miss out on all the fun.
Yeah, you're fun.
You uninvite yourself from the party. So be an optimist. As Terence McKenna, a brilliant guy, used to say, the main thing to understand is that we are imprisoned in some kind of work of art. I think that's actually true. The question is, what kind of work of art is it? Is it some kind of postmodern, degenerate piece of garbage? Or is it a beautiful Renaissance painting?
Yeah. Rembrandt.
Yeah. The answer is, it's up to us, because we hold the paintbrushes, we have the paints, we have the canvas. We choose what it's going to be. I have a book, Roswell Rising, a novel of disclosure, which is, it's a fictional story, hence the word novel, but it's about the things I've been talking about. What if we got the truth instead of the lies? What would happen? What it would be like? This thought experiment led to a fictional scenario, which led to a story, which resulted in 3 books, a trilogy. Roswell Rising, a novel of disclosure, Roswell Revealed, the world after disclosure, and Roswell Redeemed, humanity after disclosure. I have been selling these books. I have one more copy left of Roswell Redeemed, which I will sign for you if you buy it. It's just £10. Anyone?
Going.
Go. Thank you, sir. Come up and collect it. Yeah, come up and collect it. What's your name? Do you have £10?
I hope so.
What's your name?
My name's Anton.
Anson. Thank you very much. This is going to be worth a lot of money in a few years.
Especially if it's under on the bay.
Yeah.
I'll probably keep it for sentimental value, actually.
Oh, thank you very much. The other 2 sites, you can actually order them from Amazon. They will arrive in a couple of days. You can get cheaper ones actually on the. I'll get some change. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. That's my last book.
Blatantly using this talk to sell your products.
I can, unfortunately, Anson.
Bloody capitalist.
We'll have a big one to sell you one product. Okay.
But I just got one left. I had one left. I wanted to get. I just really wanted to shift this last book. But
So for the
if you
hard
want to know
sell
more,
at the end.
yeah. My name is Emlyn Jones. If you want to know more about me, I have these websites: Hospital Porters Against the New World Order, and there's 6 actual blogs. There's my YouTube channel, my radio shows, and videos of previous talks I've done for Truth Seekers North East. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you, Ben. I'd like to present you with a little gift, Ben.
Oh,
Well, Margaret bought you that.
the man.
And it's a your little flask for his lemonade.
Is it full?
It's got Ben on
I'll
it.
put something stronger than lemonade in this. It says here there was.
And I'd also like to give you a Truth Seeker hat.
Oh, another one. Thank you. I've got one already. But
No, you've got the previous one.
yeah, I've got the new one as well. But
You've got the new one?
yeah, I've got one. But she's already given me one. Just to say, I have one of these hats. So thank you, Maureen. Yeah.
Yes, I gave it to you last night, but I told you to be surprised.
Oh,
today.
sorry. Oh wow! Sorry, I forgot that bit.
Right, you're not getting the Acting Academy Award.
Oh,
Right.
Oh.
We've got the raffle. We've got loads of guest speakers coming in the near future. This was one of our previous speakers, Kieran. These 2 books are on the raffle table, so if you are lucky enough to win the raffle, you might want to consider Kieran Woodhouse's book. Very good speaker, whoever was here was seen him. I'm going to ask Ben to draw some raffle tickets. Because you've been so good, we'll have more than 3 prizes, because I know how good you are. Ben.
right. Sorry.
Right, can you put them on the raffle table, please? Right, and we'll do the raffle.
Okay.
Can I just tell you who's on next week? Sorry, Ben.
Sorry.
Next Wednesday is our Truth Seeker discussion meeting, once a fortnight, and then the week after that is the Truth Seeker Zoom meeting, once a fortnight. And next Saturday we've got a spiritual medium called Les Henderson, so you're invited to that. And then the week after we've got a guest speaker called John Hamer, who's an author. He's wrote some fantastic books about the Titanic, about JFK, about the falsification of climate change, falsification of science. So he's our guest speaker, and he's here on the 13th and 14th of August, doing 2 different talks. So get your names down. In September we're going to have Tony Toppin, we don't know what date yet. And in October we've got Neil Geddes Ward, who will be talking about fairies, ghosts and spirits. And we'll have some local speakers in between.
On the subject of spirits, I feel some of that.
Can I ask you to draw a raffle ticket,
Certainly.
please?